Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer. I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. As I was writing the material for this class, the results of the American election were coming in. I realized that I probably wouldn't know the results until I was finished writing. It's a little strange, writing something in which I know that significant things will have happened by the time I present it and by the time anybody actually hears the class. We live in a world where time can play weird tricks on us. In a sense, I am living in two different sets of time. The time in which I am actually writing up the class, and that which I will be seen presenting it. It is a bit bizarre to contemplate such a thing, but that is the nature of the world we live in. Technology has made things so that, in a sense, we have conquered time. This has all become so normal to us that we don't even recognize it as strange. Of course, that's the way things are. This is nothing more than a consequence of computers and video and even writing. Our minds are trained to believe that this is perfectly normal and that the me that other people see is not the actual me. It makes me wonder if the me that I see is the real me. As tempting as it is to reflect on the election and its great consequences, we are not going down that route. Elections happen, lives change, and life goes on. Many things in life are so far beyond our personal control that it isn't worth our time brooding over them. We pretend that in some way we really do control these things, but we know deep inside that this is simply not the case. The truth is that the only things we really have some element of control over are those things that are going on right smack in our minds. And even those, perhaps, may not be entirely in our hands. This week's Parsha is called Vayera. While it doesn't sound like much, it is a highly significant biblical word that sets the scene for the entire Parsha. The subject of the word is God, which is the very next word. So between the two of them, the meaning is, and God appeared. It is referring to God appearing to Abraham shortly after his circumcision that took place at the end of last week's Parsha. This next interchange is a direct result of an important detail that took place when God spoke with Abraham prior to the circumcision. The details were that both Abraham and Sara would have their names changed from what they were before. The new names would somehow reflect a new destiny for both of them. This is the way things work in the Bible. In any case, with his new name, Abraham experiences this revelation from God, seemingly out of nowhere. These things happen so nonchalantly in the Bible that it appears to be no more out of place than somebody today receiving a phone call. But it was God appearing to him. What does that mean? How could the Bible just state this like it is the most natural thing in the world? God doesn't even say anything to him. Instead, three men emerge, also seemingly out of nowhere. He runs to greet them. He insists that they come to his house, to his tent to eat. They agree, and Abraham rushes around trying to make things happen, telling various people to prepare a meal. While they're eating, they ask Abraham where his wife is. He replies that she is in the tent, apparently out of sight. To this, one of them springs the remarkable statement that he will return again at this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Again, these guys came from nowhere, were invited in for a meal, and completely uncalled for, simply announced that this old woman will have a son within a year. The Torah even notes that Abraham and Sara were quite old at this point. In last week's Parsha, God actually told Abraham the identical thing, and Abraham expressed amazement that a man of 100 years and a woman of 90 years could have a child. When he laughed at this, God insisted that this was indeed what would happen, and that the name he should call his son was Yitzchak, or Isaac, which was related to the Hebrew word for laughter. So this latest visitation by these three men was really just a confirmation of what Abraham had already heard. This time, however, Sarah heard it being said. Upon hearing this remarkable news, she also expressed amazement to herself, believing, of course, that both she and her husband were too old for this sort of thing. At this point, the Torah states that God asked Abraham why Sarah laughed over this. God asked him if anything was too great for God to accomplish. God reiterated that this time next year, Sarah would indeed have a son. Things get a little confusing in the next verse, if they weren't confusing enough already. The verse states, quote, "And Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, no, you laughed." That is the end of this little episode in the Torah. And the Torah immediately moves on to the next thing, which is the impending destruction of the city of Sodom and the surrounding areas. Sodom. Our little story is over, seemingly not having reached any sort of conclusion. It's just this strange verse about Sarah denying her own laughter and some voice coming out of nowhere and saying to her that, no, you laughed. Why did Sarah deny her own laughter when she knew very well that she had laughed? What does it mean that she was afraid? What was she afraid of? And whose is this mysterious voice saying, no, you laughed? Was it God? It is possible, but it certainly seems that God was speaking only to Abraham and not to Sarah. For that matter, the Torah does not say that it was God who was speaking. Perhaps it was Abraham himself who spoke to Sarah. But this would be even more strange, being as there is no indication that Abraham was speaking to Sarah at all. Furthermore, Sarah never told him that she had laughed. So why should she deny it to him? So who was this mystery speaker telling her, no, you laughed? This is such a bizarre verse that it almost screams out at us to get deeper inside and find the solution to the mystery. Who said this to Sarah? The traditional Jewish commentaries all say that it was either God or Abraham who must have said this. They managed to work around the problems with either one and fit their answer into the story. But none of them really deal with those questions asked above. On top of all that, there is another question that must be asked. What was the point of all this? Why did the Torah need to state this little interchange at all? Is it really so important that Sarah denied her own laughter and that is challenged by someone over her denial? She couldn't believe that such an old couple could have a child, and she laughed over the news. God then said to Abraham that it was not impossible, and it would indeed happen. The story should have ended right there. Perhaps we can offer a solution to this mystery. Sarah did laugh. God did ask Abraham, and not Sarah, why she laughed. Abraham never spoke to her about this laughter. Neither did God. So who did? Well, there is only one other character in the story who could have possibly known about the laughter and about the denial, and also insisted that she did indeed laugh. This, of course, was Sarah herself. But what does that mean? Was she talking to herself? Why would she have this little dialogue with herself about whether or not she laughed? She knew that she had laughed, and that was that. But then she denied it because she was afraid. Then she contested the denial. What is going on here? We all know the answer. This is the classic everyday story of our lives. We know what is going on inside our minds, but we deny it for one reason or another. In Sarah's case, it was because she was afraid. What was she afraid of? Perhaps she was afraid of her own weaknesses, of the very human weakness that she, like all of us, have of not being able to face our own destiny. She heard what that destiny was to be and couldn't believe it. Then she denied her own disbelief, realizing that it was a lack of faith. She was afraid of the person that she was, the person who needed to laugh over the impossibility of her greatest dream coming true and who needed to deny that very laughter. But then who responded, no, you laughed? This was Sarah also. This was that voice inside Sarah that we all have when we speak to ourselves. It is what is commonly called the conscience. It speaks to us out of the depths of our very selves, out of the core of the real you who resides in there, free of all the masks and charades that we present to ourselves and to the outside world. That voice is almost divine, like a hidden spirit that lives within us that is really us, though we might frequently find it to be more of a foreign invader. It is the voice of the conscious speaking out at the oddest and most revealing of times, reminding us that we have to be real at least to ourselves. No, you laughed. This simple statement of facts says it all. No matter how much we like to deny who we are, that voice is always there to set the record straight. We can deny our own conscience, of course, but this just gets us into that endless vortex of denial and counter-denial and all those inner dead ends that are so much a part of human experience. No, you laughed. No matter how much you try to deny it, the conscience will always be there reminding you of the truth. Is there any better way of ending this little story in the Bible that seems to have no end? I would like to hear it. The story ends with Sarah's conscience speaking to her and reminding her that she cannot run away from herself, just as she must face the reality of her own destiny. What do we have control of in our lives? Do we control our fate, our destiny? Perhaps to some degree, but we all know that to a great extent, this is out of our hands. We cannot control our genes or most of the things that happen to us or the events that happen around us, like elections and the economy and who wins the ball game. We do not even seem to have that much control over what goes on right smack inside our own minds. Try controlling an emotion when it gets too powerful. It's nice to pretend that we can, but we all know it's easier to just flip on the TV or flip through the latest Facebook postings. So that's what we do. But we do have some limited control. This is the only thing that we can control to whatever degree that we do. We have a conscience. It is there to remind us of who we are and who we are not, no matter how hard we try to reverse things. If we try to deny who we are, to deny that we are the person who laughed or cried or didn't care one way or the other, the conscience is always right there with us, being us, and telling us that it is no use denying who we are. It is like the proverbial trying to run away from your own shadow. It always catches up. This is a thing of tremendous importance that is being revealed in these few words in the Torah. In a sense, it is more important than an election, or a stock market crash, or even a pandemic. It is the essence of what life is all about, finding who we are and either learning to live with it or making an effort to change it. There is nothing more important than this. It is the reason we were created and the reason that God continues to play a subtle or dramatic role in our lives. It is the reason we have this thing called a conscience. We have to face who we are. Shabbat Shalom.